Okay, we'll call this special meeting of the Township of Ocean Board of Adjustment to order. Claire, can you take a roll call, please?
Yes, here.
Zamora.
Here.
Bucanero.
Here.
Delomo.
Here.
Whitman.
Here.
Fugielli.
Here.
Medeski.
Here.
Caramanica. Vice Chair Fuller.
Here.
Chairwoman Deal.
Please rise to salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the notice having been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Coaster and filed with in the office of the Township Clerk on July 21st, 2024. There's an emergency exit through the courtroom doors, 2 exits at the rear of the room if we need to leave quickly. No smoking, please. All meetings will be video and audio taped and shown on the Township of Ocean's Community Cable Channel, Channel 22 on Verizon Fios, and Channel 77 on Cablevision. All cell phones must be turned off. Please, if you need to make a phone call, please make that call outside of the meeting room. The first 2 things on the agenda are resolutions for memorialization. We need to skip those. Those are not prepared yet, so those will be carried over to the next meeting, which is February 20th. So this meeting is to speak about the First French-speaking Baptist Church, 2795 to 2797 Asbury Avenue. Just for the record, all members who had missed the last meeting have listened to or viewed the last proceeding and have signed statements that they watched or heard the ongoings. Mark, is there anything we need to cover before I turn it over to Ms. Curley?
See if I don't know if it's on. If not, I talk really loud anyway. So good evening, Amanda Curley from Dave Pitney on behalf of the applicant, the First French-speaking Baptist Church. We are here today for our 4th hearing before this board with respect to our request for preliminary and final major site plan approval to construct a house of worship on property located at 2795 to 2797 Asbury Avenue, also identified as lots 71 and 72 in block 38 on the tax maps. Houses of worship are conditional use, so we require a D3 variance here because we don't meet all the standards. The only standard we do not meet is minimum lot depth, and that is because the existence of a paper street to the rear of the property. We otherwise meet all the conditional use standards. There are also a number of minor C variances, some of which were at the request of revisions from the board and board commentary. I'll quickly go through them. We need a C variance to permit a change in grade to exceed the maximum of 2 feet. It's a very technical variance and it's minor, and we have testimony to support that relief. We also have variance relief for the proposed location of the driveway. That was in response to board commentary and board professionals. Your ordinance has, you have to have within the center 1/3, and for site distances, we were asked to shift it out of that 1/3, so that's a request. Another variance that was as a result of board commentary is parking. When we first came here in January 18th of 2024, we had a fully conforming parking plan. The board asked us to reduce the parking to the greatest extent possible so we could increase the buffer along Sharon Drive, which we've done. So the variance is for 218 parking stalls where 251 are required by ordinance. There's also a very minor variance because our landscaping plan was not prepared by a landscape architect, but a civil engineer. And lastly, a design waiver relief for the number of tree replacements and size. We've already gone through the landscaping plan. If you recall, we've really bulked up the plantings. However, I believe we still need a minor contribution for tree replacement size. As I stated, we were here on January 18, 2024, revised the plans pretty substantially, and then came back on November 12th and December 19th, 2024. We concluded with our engineer and our traffic engineer. So tonight I have our architect who's going to talk about not only the floor plans, but the use and answer all the use and operational questions. And then I also have our planner who will put on the planning proofs. And with that,
Ma'am, just to clarify, just so I have everything straight in my head.
Mhm.
So the only variances that you would have to seek if you hadn't ever complied with what the board wanted you to do, or the professionals wanted to do, obviously the D3 for lot width, the change in grade, and the landscaping being done by not a licensed architect. The rest of the variances are all because of requests that were made by the board.
Yes.
Okay. Just so the board all has that in their head. Most of these are board created variances because they're complying with your request.
Excuse me, your planner is also your traffic engineer.
He's our professional engineer, but we are not reopening our testimony on our engineer. He concluded and he was subject to public input. He is here just as a planner. He is a licensed professional planner as well.
Understood, but we just may have questions. Why I'm asking.
Well, if the board has if Mr. Klein is here and the board has questions about traffic,
Mr. Klein is not
that's
here.
not Mr. Klein.
No.
Not
I'm
the
sorry.
same gentleman.
Oh,
Mr.
you're just
Anderson.
here.
Yes, Mr.
Oh,
Anderson.
Okay. That's
Our,
why I asked.
our traffic engineer is not here tonight.
Okay. I just remembered you saying he was also a licensed planner.
It wasn't our traffic, it was our engineer. So our civil engineer back when you were an engineer's sorry to
Understood,
age
that's
you,
okay.
Paul. Several years ago, you used to be able to check a box,
Okay,
and then you
understood.
became a planner too. Oh, did you? I'm very impressed. But so Paul will be doing our planning testimony, but we have concluded on his engineering, and I do not want to open him up to any potential cross-examination.
Understood.
Great. And with that, I have Robert Dooley, who's our architect, if you'd like to swear him in and get his credentials.
Sir, do you swear testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And just state your name for the record.
Robert G. Dooley, Jr.
Could you spell your last name?
D-O-O-L-E-Y.
And you are a licensed architect, state of New Jersey.
Yes, since October 1994.
Thank you. Go ahead. You don't have to vote here.
Okay, great.
Right, so I'm just going to introduce you to the project. I'm going to tell you who the church is. I'm then going to tell you the surveys that I've taken with them that identify the building use. And then I'm going to walk you through the building. I'll then go over the elevations with you. And I have a few exhibits that will be their renderings of the building. And then we will, that'll conclude my testimony. So, the First Haitian Baptist Church, their mission statement. We take Jesus Christ as prophet, priest, king, give ourselves up to be saved, taught and ruled by him. We admit in the church, which is the body of Christ, born again Christians to whom baptism administered in the name of the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, we commit ourselves to the Lord's great commission to go and preach the gospel to all nations. We are here to reach out to others, to grow as followers in Christ, and go forth in ministry and service that all may know God's love revealed in through Jesus Christ. Now, that was their mission statement. Their vision statement,
What does this have to do with the architecture of the building?
it lays the foundation for who they are and why they want to do it.
But
and
I
what they
understand
design.
it, but with all due respect, you're the architect.
Okay.
So why are you testifying as to their mission statement?
He's also representing as to the applicant's use, because he has worked intimately with the applicant in order to go through the hours of operations, the needs. He's going to be talking about what days, what kind of uses are on the property, and he prepared the building use document that was submitted with the board outlining all of that.
All right, so he's not just testifying as an architect, he's also testifying as what?
The applicant's representative.
As a representative of the applicant.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear it because I know
No,
nothing about the
that's
church
fine.
anyway.
I didn't know that he was he was presented just as the architect, and this has nothing to do with architecture.
Don't say
So if he's also testifying as the
just
applicant,
the architect. Come on.
As he walks you through the floor plans, he's
didn't
also
check a
going to be
box?
walking you through the uses of everything and the hours of operation and the like.
that's fine.
Okay. This is
You're wearing two hats. It's fine.
Yes, the vision statement. The First French-speaking Baptist Church is a place where believers become disciples, Jesus Christ equipped and engaged in worship, study, prayer, evangelism, and social involvement. So that's what they're going to be using this building for. All right, so let me walk you through the building. Or actually, I'm sorry, the building use. The church meets on, and I believe you all have, you all have a copy of this document?
I do not.
No.
Who
It was
believes we
submitted with the
have
application.
Do you have extra copies?
think I do.
I have no doubt it was submitted with the application, but that was like over a year ago, so.
Oh, is this? This is the old packet I had forever.
I have 2 copies.
I don't need one. I can share. You guys.
Right, this is still good, this one?
Yes, that's
Yes.
it.
Okay.
That's it.
You got it.
I do not think you need to mark this as an exhibit if it was submitted.
You shouldn't, and I don't know if Mark marked it when he, I don't know if he did.
Was this marking for everyone?
It was. And when you get back, can you tell us what it was? What exhibit it is?
I try and do this.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
I don't believe it was submitted. I have a list. I have a list of the exhibits. This was not one of them. This was submitted with the application materials. It's not.
So why don't we mark it? Amanda's saying, Ms. Curley's saying it was not marked in, and she has a list. So why don't we mark it in since we're referring directly to it?
A9.
Yes. Is that part of it? Okay, so it's a statement,
It's
so
a mission statement that we just
I just read. So let's mark that in also. So A9, let's do the mission statement since we just went over that. And then A10 is going to be, what is A10?
the building use description.
Building description,
Yeah,
okay.
you're right.
Thank you.
See that? Alright, perfect. I keep doing this. Special.
Do you have another copy of the building use description? Thank you. Darren, it's May 20th, 2024.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure they were.
Like, Claire, you ready?
What's the date on it?
Yeah, I don't know if Mark marked it in though. Amanda's saying that they did.
I didn't see it in the transcripts, but
I'm marking, so I
that
mark
was
it
the
as,
floor plan that's different. Oh, yeah.
so Claire, I don't, Mark doesn't mark in, it's the way I mark it. So it's possible,
He does this as one copy.
so he probably marked in everything as A1.
Yes.
Okay, but let's just mark it in as let's just, because we're referring to it separately, let's just mark it in. I think it's safer.
And that was A10.
That's
A10.
the building description is building use, building description is A10. I apologize.
Oh, not a problem. Go ahead.
You can go?
Yep.
Right, so the building use is related to this design, right? So after surveying the church, coming up with their needs, we design the building, and this use is how it relates to these floor plans and this building. So their their Sunday school meets between 8:30 and 9 a.m. in the basement. There's 7 classrooms, 94 to 100 children, 8 teachers. Basement multi-purpose room can also handle 50 adults at that time, because they also have adult Sunday school. Sunday sanctuary service, 9:30 a.m. to 12 noon, 1 service each Sunday. Sunday and holiday services, Sunday sanctuary service, 9:30 a.m. to 12 noon, 1 service each Sunday. Sunday and holiday services could have as many as 466 total attendance. Sunday service in the sanctuary also serves. It serves every Sunday: Christmas service, New Year's Eve service, Easter service, and harvest service. Attendance breakdown: 450 adults, including choir, children, and visitors. 6 pastor elders, 6 deacons on duty, 4 sound room and video tech people, 36 choir, and those are included in the 450. When they do have the choir is singing, they will sing, they will come back to their seat in the sanctuary and sit with their family. So it says children, teachers, adult Sunday school attendees are included in the 466, attended class during a portion of the Sunday service. Average Sunday attendance, 316 persons, adults including choir, children, visitors, and that was for 2023. I believe it's still around that same number. They did lose people during COVID. Parking required, according to civil engineers and traffic engineers' testimony, Sunday, so that's just referring back to it. Sunday evening adult Bible study. So on Sunday evening from 7 to 8, 8 to 9, varies, basement, multi-purpose room, 30 adults. All right, then weekly church use. The church office, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Typically in the office, 1 pastor, 2 elders, 2 administrators, estimated 10 visitors per week. Weekly leadership meeting, office conference room, 1 day a week, afternoon, evening, pastor and 5 elders. Deacons meeting, office conference room, bi-weekly, afternoon, evenings, 10 deacons. All right, deacon. All right, a deacon is somebody, and I'll talk about this later on. They typically serve the needs of the church community, including members and visitors on Sunday or any other time the church meets as a body. Needs maintenance of the church facilities. They police the building every Sunday. There's always a group of deacons on for security reasons, to watch over the grounds, watch the lobby, and take care of any problems that might occur inside the building. Hopefully there aren't any. Right. Their worship team practice. Again, the sanctuary has a platform where the worship team would be on Sundays. They practice the sanctuary and the sound booth are used for that 1 evening a week, Saturday or Sunday evening, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. 6 musicians, vocalists, 2 sound room tech people. Choir practice, sanctuary, sound, and booth are needed for that. 2 evenings in the week prior to performance. 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Choir performs first Sunday of each month, Christmas, Easter, and the harvest celebration, or 15 times a year. 36 choir members, 6 musicians, 2 sound room. Choir practice 24 evenings a year. So it gives you the frequency of, they're not there all the time. They don't perform every Sunday. Youth group, multi-purpose room, Friday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. 50 youths, including youth pastors. Small group teachers, teaching. 12 to 25 congregants, every other week, evening, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Small group prayer, 6 to 12 congregants. 3 days per week, Tuesday, 10 a.m., 12 p.m., Wednesday, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Health screening. This would be in the multi-purpose room. It's the first Saturday of the month. It's open to the public. Public attendance, 30 persons. These are usually older people. They have 6 nurses, 1 doctor. It goes from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Food bank, Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Open to the public. Attendance varies. Church has 4 to 10 volunteers to run it depending on quantity of food available. Yearly uses. Wedding, formal, large meal, 2 times a year, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 192 seated at tables, max 8 servers, 8 kitchen staff, total 208. I'll get into this a little bit more detail in a little bit. Funerals 2 times a year. Sanctuary sound booth is used for that. Worship team, 4 musicians, 1 vocalist, 1 sound room, 25 to 100 congregants, visitors potentially larger. Church conference, sanctuary, sound booth, multi-purpose room, visiting pastor, preacher, teacher, 1 weekend a year. So that would be someone comes and visits from another church. They come and do a conference at the church for a weekend. So, and they typically are Friday evening teaching 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., followed by coffee in a multi-purpose room. Saturday, 8 a.m. breakfast, multi-purpose room teaching 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., lunch multi-purpose room teaching 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. So the days are broken up for both of these, between preaching, lunch, teaching. So that would be over pretty much a 2-day period. Summer Bible camp, vacation Bible school. Multi-purpose rooms used for that. Classrooms, parking lot, 2 weeks, 10 days during the summer. 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 100 to 150 campers. Teachers, counselors, tent for barbecue in the parking lot. Also, they'd be using the kitchen for that. I know my church, we do something similar. We make lunches for Aslan. They're a Christian group. And so they would be making lunch for the kids and using the kitchen for that. All right. Now, also the building would be used for emergency or disaster use or relief, for church and public short-term storm shelter, for food distribution center, for disaster relief team accommodations. Portable showers would be brought in for local work, utility staging area. This was very common after Sandy. A lot of the churches did this. They're also open to do the same thing. So let me get into a little bit more. So I'm going to get into the building now, and I'll also talk about some of these things with the building. So per the UCC IRC, the 2021 State of New Jersey Building Code, Section 1004.5, areas without fixed seats. So I'm going to talk about unconcentrated tables and chairs, mostly the multi-purpose room, because I know that that's going to be something we're going to discuss. You're allowed 15 square feet net and we have a 4,400 square foot multi-purpose room. That room could accommodate 293 people. There's no way. When I laid out tables and chairs,
So, Bob, whatever you're showing them, has this previously been submitted?
this has been previously submitted.
Just to be careful.
What was the architectural and as part of the exhibit, as part of the main packet? You want to mark it in separately, the architecturals?
I think so, because I'm looking at the transcripts and I have a different list than you. So why don't we mark this as A11?
A11 are the architecturals.
We're good?
Yes.
Right, so
Right.
Just say which sheet it is.
this is sheet A101.1.
Thank you.
So I've laid out the downstairs, the basement, this building 2 ways. We'll just look at this area for now. In the event of a church dinner that they would have, an event where they would have food, conference over a weekend where they would set up tables and chairs for people who would be there. This is the maximum layout I can get in that room.
Excuse me, for purposes of the video, you have to hold that close to your mouth.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So again, per code, I can fit 292 people in this space. It's just not going to happen. All right, this is already maxed out. So we're not going to meet that code. What's our number? I'm sorry. We have 92 occupants and 8 servers possible in that space. All right. With that, those are 5-foot tables, 8 people at a table. I know I set up tables like that all the time in my church. All right. So the sanctuary, I'm going to talk about that also, but I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to go to the building entry.
Do we mark each sheet, or
If it's all part of the,
it's
what,
all part of the plan set?
is the plan set that the board has, is it colorized, or is this separate? Or is this different?
I think it's colorized.
Alright, so the version we have, then it's all part of A11, you just have to tell us what sheet it is.
This is sheet A101.0.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, Bob, the multipurpose room is in the basement,
The multi-purpose room is in the basement.
and this is what we're looking for. This is the first floor.
This is the first floor, but we'll get back to the basement in a little bit. So I'm going to walk you through now. To the right of the sheet, and you have kind of an area that's floating over to the right. That's the sound room up above the bathrooms. That's that area there. All right. So that's up above the lobby area. So you come into the lobby. When you come into the lobby, to the right there's a deacon station. To the left there's a reception station. To the right there's a coat room. Right. To the left is an area to the lower part of the page where would be our handicap, a ramp entrance and an elevator that would go down to the basement. You have the men's and women's toilets. Then you come in to the sanctuary. Sanctuary seats 450 people. Then in front of the sanctuary you have a platform, and the platform steps up to where the choir is. On the bottom portion of the platform you would have a podium, then you'd have chairs for the elders and the pastor. Behind them would be the choir. Behind that is a white space that allows the pastor, the elders, children from below who would come up, say if they had a Christmas program and they wanted to come up and do a program, they come up from the basement, but they can come onto the platform from behind, not from the front.
Almost like a theater.
Yes. Pastor and elders can come from their offices to the front to the platform. So, and then there's also a choir room for dressing. They have a bathroom, and there's a studio for musicians to practice during the week. Right. The church offices, they have a conference room, a work room, 2 staff, 2 elders' offices, pastor's office. Right, so I'm going to go back to the basement.
So we're looking at A101.1 again,
Correct.
Correct.
of Exhibit 11.
I'm sorry, give me a minute, please. All right. So I want to address the multi-purpose room. The multi-purpose room is a true multi-purpose room. If I remember back to Mr. Klein's traffic testimony, it was brought up, they mentioned a banquet hall. It's not a banquet hall. This is a true multi-purpose room. The reason why it was called a banquet hall was it didn't fall into the trip generation category that the state has. Am I correct in that? That was a testimony. This is a multi-purpose room. 90% of the time, this room is going to be used for the congregants, for the youth in the church, for play for the youth in the lower wing, the classrooms, for adult Sunday school, and that's what this room is going to be used for. It will occasionally be used for a large meal. We have a commercial kitchen, and that kitchen has to be rated and certified as food safe. It's important. You can't use the kitchen for any other reason other than if it's certified for that, and it has to be inspected by the local health inspector. Most churches all have to do this.
And just to confirm, the kitchen's not going to be open to the public. It's
No.
not going to be used for outside events. It's only going to be used in connection with church-associated events.
Correct.
Can,
Yes.
Can an outside entity rent the space
Yeah.
from the church?
It's an insurance issue.
Alright,
Most-
so if the board approves this, that'd be a condition of approval that the space cannot be utilized by outside organizations.
Occasionally, what they would do though is if they had sister churches or other churches come in for a conference, they would share the space. But the church would always have jurisdiction and have control over the space. They would not rent it out. Okay. So now,
Well, let me just ask you, because I know it's very common, I just want to be sure we're very, very clear on this. I know it's very common for churches, for instance, to let, like, Alcoholics Anonymous operate within the church. That happens a lot. That's obviously not a church activity. Are we saying, just so you are not caught up on something in the future, are you saying that that would never be allowed, because that would be an outside organization
I don't-
utilizing the space?
I don't think that would trigger the use of the kitchen, the kitchen for anything other than coffee.
Okay.
Um,
So when you're saying it won't be utilized by other outside services, you're referencing solely with use with the kitchen.
yes.
Okay. So kitchen cannot be used, but the space might be used by outside organizations.
But it would be like what you just referenced. It would be like an Alcoholics Anonymous or a,
it'd
yeah.
be associated with community outreach that is,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah,
Um,
but those typically are,
religious.
they wouldn't rent the space to do that. That would be the church would give that to them to do.
Okay.
All right, so now I'd like to, do you have any questions about the building use or the building?
Before
Layout,
he goes into
the layout.
elevations.
The only question I had, I think, was answered that if the church wants to volunteer and let an outside community service use it, they can. But it would not be a rental fee involved for doing so, correct?
I'm pretty sure I can give testimony to that. I know the church well enough. If they had a group like that that was a recovery group or a service group, I'm sure that they would. There's still logistics you have to go through. There's still insurances a church has to make sure when a group comes in that they're covered
Right.
for anything that might happen. And usually the church has to provide supervision for that. They would have to have they would have members of their staff. We do the same thing, that would be there to, in case something came up with the building that they needed to deal with. You know, lights didn't work,
Right.
something happened.
Okay.
So, but that's a typical function of that's a typical way you would move through that.
Right. So if I wanted to call the church and say, hey, I want to have a party in your church and I want to rent it out for X, Y, and Z, that would not be allowed,
No way.
correct?
No.
I think what you're talking about is nonprofit service organizations.
Correct.
Correct,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
But no, there's no intention to rent out the church.
All right, so I'd like to then, if that's that, I'm just gonna go over the building elevations.
And just announce the sheet. So this is still, oh wait, I think this is new.
These look new.
These are new. So these will be A12.
Is that all the same thing, or are those multiple?
No, they're all different.
How many of them are?
Although they look the same.
How many are there?
There are 4.
So
There,
812 is a series of 4 renderings.
correct.
Okay.
Now, if you look closely, and I'm sorry that the quality of the photo didn't come through the way I quite wanted it. One,
exactly the same.
they do look at, one is actually brick, the other one is stucco.
Got it. Okay.
All right, and you can start to see the subtle difference.
Yep.
Right, the church right now we're going back and forth. Of course, they have to come up with a budget. This has been going on a long time. If they can afford the brick, they want.
Let's do this, and I'm sorry. If they're not, if one is like option A and option B, then let's not mark them all in as A12.
Oh,
All
right.
right, so A12 is, you're saying there's four boards there.
I
Right.
think
2
one's
are
brick and one's stucco. So A12 will be the brick and A13 will be the stucco.
All right, so 2 of them are of stucco and 2 of them are of brick.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So A12 will be the bricks, will be the brick version, and A13 will be the stucco version. And the church has yet to decide which they're going to use because it's going to depend upon price in the future. Correct. That's what I'm hearing? Okay. But it will be one of those two.
Yes. And
Yes.
then we're referencing the elevations which were previously submitted. They would be Exhibit A11, Sheet A 102.0.
I'm sorry, 101,
102.
102.0. Okay.
These are slightly different than
Oh, this is different?
These are different.
Oh,
Okay.
so then it's going to
Slightly
be
different.
A14.
Right, I understand that, but this one.
All right, so these are
Render
color
elevations.
elevations. Okay.
And they're noted option 1 brick and
Thank you.
EIFS and the option.
Okay.
Brick. Stucco. He's the architect.
Option 2.
So A14 is is what? The color elevations, stucco or brick?
That's all stucco.
A14 was stucco.
Okay. And then so A15 will be brick?
So that we're now looking at option 2, which is brick, or am I not misunderstanding? Or am I misunderstanding what you're
Option 2 is stucco.
Option 2.
Option 1 on the other side is brick.
saying? Okay, so A14 was brick. A15 is stucco. Yes.
I'm going to put that on there.
Okay, so we're gonna try now to let's pause for a second while we try to figure this out on our
Here,
side.
give them back.
I assume this is brick. This
Yes.
is that's brick.
Yep, you got it right.
Okay.
Just look closely.
Yeah, I can see. So this is A12. This is A12.
Yeah. All right, it wouldn't be white brick.
That one you're looking at is stucco.
But the white in all the pictures is stucco, no matter
Yes.
what.
As is the red.
Right. Yes, the white is stucco in all the pictures. The main body of the building will be stucco.
Yeah, that's just the
The,
red.
it's the front office area that faces Asbury Avenue, and then the back entry area that faces the parking lot. They're either going to be brick or stucco, but the color palette is going to remain the same. So the building meets our height requirement. It meets all of our setback requirements. I've walked you through the building. This is what the church has chosen that they like. I'm willing to take any questions that you would have.
Anybody have any questions? Jim, Ben, do you have any questions?
So they prefer brick if they can afford it. That's what you.
Yeah, I think we all would.
So brick is the preference.
Brick is the preference.
When Mark's ready, we'll ask the public for
I
questions.
am
You
ready.
Okay. Any members of,
I have one question. Can we talk about the uses too? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have a question about the wedding use. Would it be outdoor weddings? Would they all be indoors?
Yes. It could be outdoor.
Okay.
Yes, they could absolutely put a tent in the parking lot or on a portion of the site and have an outdoor wedding.
Okay.
Do they need extra permitting for if they do a temporary tent? Does anybody know?
I think they need,
You can't do that as of right.
temporary.
You probably have to get special.
You probably have to get some type of special
Yes.
permit in order to do that.
That's just, it's the same with barbecues and all those things. Typically, they're permitted, and you have a fire person inspector come They'll inspect grills, they'll inspect the facility, they'll make sure that they have fire extinguishers, you know, it's common.
All right, so if the board approves the application, the condition will be if outdoor, I know you already have to do it, but I'm gonna make it right in the resolution. If outdoor events occur, proper permitting would have to be secured.
We agree with that, yes.
And that's the same for the Bible camp, right? Are they cooking outdoors?
I
or
was
just
I was
eating?
just going to ask that question.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
They cook outdoors too. You need outdoors for the
Right?
Bible
Yes,
camp.
you do.
And it's just 2 weeks out of the summer. That's it. Just
That's what I was. That's in my
One time
survey
during
to
the
the
summer.
church. Yes,
Do you know what the dates are for those times? Like what
I
months they are?
I do not.
July. Thank you.
Middle of July.
But, you know, that's a guess. You know, they decide to do something in June, it's not gonna be in the resolution that you only can do it in July.
Of course not.
Yeah, I do have one question, and I don't know if I missed this in my review or not, but I noticed there are facade signs on the church. And I don't know how critical they are, but they're not permitted by the ordinance. So that would be another variance.
So we.
Yeah, the church is permitted to have a monument sign that's 20 square feet. And at least 15 feet from the property line.
So no facade signs are permitted?
I'm sorry, 60 square foot monument sign.
Okay.
So do you wanna eliminate the facade signs?
I would eliminate
Yeah.
the facade signs. We'll
Okay.
eliminate the facade signs.
Alright, so,
Motion.
plans will be revised to remove facade signs as not permitted.
Okay.
Any more questions?
I have one more question. Just to be clear, so for the summer Bible camp, would they need to get permits to have the Bible camp since it's going to be outdoors?
I think only in the event that they have it outdoors. They could also do it indoors without
And-
permitting.
Right, but if they do it outdoors, they would have to get a permit.
If
for
they
that.
want to put a tent up, yes.
What if they don't want to put a tent up and they
I-
just want to have?
I don't think that anything can restrict them from sitting on the grass and
No, of course.
Yeah.
I'm just asking the question, and also, will they be erecting any type of outdoor pools for the camp or anything like that?
They don't do that.
Thank you.
Any more questions from members of the board? Does anybody from the public have questions? Come on up, please. Clara's going to put that microphone back up over there for you to go to the microphone.
So I'm just gonna swear you in. Yeah, so can we just make sure, Mr. Kazarowski, I know you're representing some objectors tonight. Can we just get the names of your clients so that we don't have duplication?
Let the record reflect. My name is Ron Gazarovski. I'm an attorney with offices in Red Bank, New Jersey. I was present at the first hearing with regard to this application. I was representing Ms. Darlene Sandlin. There came a point in time when she chose, for different reasons, not to retain me further during the subsequent hearings, but she did contact me today, and I am here this evening representing her. I believe she is the owner of property immediately adjacent to the property in question.
So that's your only client is Darlene Sandlin?
Pardon me?
Is that your only client?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
So, Mark, that means his client won't ask questions. Mr.
Yes,
Gazarovski will ask questions.
Ms. Sandlin is not allowed to comment unless she's put up by Mr. Gazarovski. She can't ask questions and she can't comment. So, all right, sir, I'm just going to swear you in. I don't know if we have previously or not, but do you swear any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Just state your name for the record.
Boris Lovisek.
I'm sorry?
Boris Lovisek.
Could you spell that, please?
Lovisek.
And, okay, what was the first name?
Boris. Boris.
Okay, go ahead. And what's your address?
216 Coldinian Springs Road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have two questions, please. First, is there going to be any kind of bells in the church? I know there's no tower, but you know, electronic bells that would ring every hour or something like that. Like, other churches have?
Yeah, Boris, that's not something we've discussed.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can find out real quick.
All right. If there's any bell ringing going on, and my second one,
Ms. Carl, can we find that out if there's any?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any bell on the plan.
No,
no bells.
no bells.
No bells.
at all. Okay. And my second question is about the summer camp. You mentioned that they let like 150 kids out at 4 p.m. That was something like 150 kids get out of the summer camp at 4 p.m. onto
The camp goes until, yes, it goes until 4 p.m. And then there would probably be pickup for those children.
at 4 p.m. in the summer, but did they do traffic study in the summer?
That's not my expertise.
Because I don't know if you know, but Asbury Avenue, it's 1 lane each, and in the summer, it's a different ballgame there.
So this goes back to the same thing we discussed this at the last hearing. This property is zoned for this use. So traffic becomes very difficult to bring into this conversation because of the fact that it's anticipated that there's going to be traffic associated with the church, and the
On
township
top of
decided
regular
that,
traffic.
and the township has decided that a church is appropriate for this site.
Okay.
They're not here for a use variance, saying, hey, we want to put a church where a church isn't allowed. The church is allowed on this spot.
Mhm.
So the off-site traffic becomes very difficult to bring into the conversation. Okay?
Miss Curley, on the heels of this individual, Boris, I forgot your last name, and I'd butcher it if I said it. On the heels of Boris's question, I'm going to ask something. I know your traffic expert is not here. I just want to say, first of all, that I think the mission and the vision statements of the church are absolutely beautiful, and I'm so glad you read them. I knew nothing about them, and it was beautiful to hear. The community outreach elements of the church, the food bank, the health screening, also, what the church does for their own community, and then clearly the community at large, also, just beautiful things that they're going to do, not just for the church, but the people around the church and in the greater Ocean area. With that in mind, something the board would like to ask, clearly you don't have to do it. We would like to have you take back to your traffic expert and your client, if you would consider during these higher traffic areas, when the church is let out and when the camp is let out, if you would consider having them have a police officer directing traffic. I know right now it's designated for right turns only. People are not going to just, when they make the right turns, they're going to make U-turns. They're going to turn in people's driveways. They're going to go down streets and make U-turns. There is nothing to prevent them from doing that. It's just going to be a big problem. This is our greatest concern. We all know it's designated for this use. We know you are not here for a use variance, but we would like you to consider having an officer at these high traffic times directing traffic so that maybe people can make the left turns and eliminate this broader problem of the U-turns.
I don't think they're able to make the left turn just because there's going to be a pork chop structure. It's righted this is, and the ingress egress is county jurisdiction. So we're complying with the county comments.
You went back to the county and said to them, if we had a police officer, could you change that?
No. We've tried with the county. So the driveway is the county.
I just think they decided on this plan and then punted to us with this larger problem that they didn't even think of our community. And now our community members are saddled with, these, we don't look, it's not that nobody wants to welcome the church here, because like I said, the idea is beautiful. It's just the broader concern is, who's going to drive 1.5 miles down to go somewhere and then come back?
Let me ask this question. Would you agree that as a condition, that you will work with the board and the board professionals in possibly trying to convince the county to eliminate that requirement. And if the county says no,
The county is
that's life. But here's the thing: the county hasn't heard from the board.
Mm-hmm.
And if the board puts as a condition that, or makes it very clear in its resolution, if they approve the application, we don't like this. We understand the county's making you do this, but we're asking the county to reconsider this.
We would talk to them on your behalf.
And we go with you hand in hand and ask the county to get rid of the. And if the county says no, then nothing changes. I mean, it's no harm, no foul. But maybe the county will listen if it's the town coming with you.
Right, maybe being local members of the community and maybe people knowing local.
Because that's one of the problems with county approval, is that the county does the approval in a vacuum without talking to anybody in the town. And they look at it as from a county perspective. They don't look at it from a board perspective, which actually knows better about what's going on site.
No, but I cannot make this determination right
Understood,
this second.
and that's-
I don't.
We're not
by
finishing
saying
tonight, so you can discuss it with your clients. I just don't see how your client is injured by doing that. If you're going with the board and the board professionals are there saying, these are the reasons we don't like this. Please, county, change your mind and let us do this, because it defies logic why they're requiring it. They have their own logic, but as the board's saying here, and I don't think it's just Lisa. I think it's more board members than her have a shared concern.
We had this discussion before.
I would like to let you know, it is a concern because, of course, we would never want to deny anybody from worship in their religion or doing anything that they want to do. I'm in favor of the church, and I like the church. I like their mission statement. I like everything about it. But we also have to take into considerations, and we know it's not part of what you're looking for, but we do have people that live in the neighborhoods, and we want to take into consideration because we all live here, and when you have, 142 cars leaving at the same time, driving throughout the neighborhoods, not knowing the area, not knowing the speed limits, kids are outside playing. There's a lot that goes into play here because this is a time where families are home because it's Sunday. It's also my day of worship. I worship as well. And, when you have that much traffic driving through neighborhoods, bad things can happen, and we don't want that to happen. We want to work with you, and we just need you to consider it, that's all. We're just looking for some consideration.
I think the other point is you have right across the street, you have a church, you have the Montessori Academy. I'm very familiar with both of those two sites for years, and I only know of one accident occurring involving either of those two uses on Asbury Avenue. Those are things that could be pointed out to the county, and you might very well be able to change your mind. Particularly, there might be other individuals at the county that might be in a better position to make a decision.
And let's be clear here. I want to be very, very clear for the record. When the board says that that this was talked about, it was up in the caucus prior to this hearing, which is open to the public and advertised. So it's not like they were having private conversations ahead of time. I also want to point out that we fully understand that the county's going to have ultimate say in this, and the board can't deny an application over something that the county's directing. The county has jurisdiction over it, and the board gets that. We're just asking for your cooperation of going back to the board, and again, if the county planning board, I'll say it again, if they turn us down, you would continue with your normal approval, assuming the board approves the application. So it's really, there's no skin off your applicant by agreeing to work with us on that. It just creates a better traffic plan the way that I think everyone here feels would be better.
And I think the congregants too.
What?
I think it would work better for the
I
congregants.
I agree. I think it would work better for the congregants as well.
Yeah.
Be easier.
Okay.
And Ms. Carroll,
Yeah, we
you
can
wanna
park
make
this.
decision
I
tonight. Don't have to. We're not
this
trying to
is-
put you on the spot.
This is county jurisdiction, so I would
Absolutely.
reserve my right to get back to you
Yes.
on that because
Please do.
I just
We have the advantage that Mr. Gazarovski's here tonight, if you want to consider that the lone advantage of it for you, is that we're coming back another day so you can give us that answer at the next meeting.
okay.
Okay? All right. Just the board highly encourages you to go along with that suggestion.
We just want all the community members for the church and the greater Ocean community to come in together as instead of starting out on perhaps an adversarial process.
Nothing like that, you said?
Yes, that's the original plan.
You want to do that? We'll see if the county will let us do left in, left out with that.
We want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
What
Because that's my whole point. Is I think you are almost better served if the board has voted. I don't want you to waste your time. If the board votes down the application, don't waste your time, because the board's not going to deny the application based upon this. Okay, but I think what it is that we're asking the board will put into its resolution, assuming that they approve the application, that this is our preference. All right, and again, if the county and so we want to walk in hand in hand with you to make this plea to the. If it's just you, it doesn't read as strong. It reads a lot stronger if the town is with you asking for this not to happen. Because the town again is looking at it from a local level with all the constituents in mind, whereas the county's in some county vacuum.
But we also need to have some sort of cap for us, because like, what if they're like put in a light and it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars?
I understand.
So we
Has to
need
be
to put in some
It's got to
reasonable.
be reasonable.
It's
I don't, they're not asking.
Absolutely.
We
That's
just
fair.
want to work as a partner to see if it's a possibility. Because again, the county planning board considered this in a vacuum without any consideration from talking with us.
They looked at it with Trip Generation, and they
Right.
looked at their standards,
Right.
and they said this is what we require when you exceed this number.
Yeah.
And
Excuse me, we can't have people talking in the back because this hearing's being recorded. Okay. Thank you.
I will get back to you after I speak to my client, and honestly, I was not the one to have the conversations with the county, so I am not equipped right now to give you an answer.
That's fine. We're not asking you to.
Yeah.
We're just emphasizing how important it is to the board because they're looking out for the best interests of the community as a planning board,
Noted.
or in this case, the zoning board.
And knowing what the church does and how they serve the community too, and what they want to do for themselves, and how much good they do.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Dooley?
Yeah, any questions from the member? Come on up, sir.
So let me swear you in. Do you swear any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Just state your name for the record,
Jeffrey Flacker,
and just by your last names,
F like Frank, Lakker,
and your address, please.
7 Sharon Drive.
Okay, go ahead.
First, thank you for the comments on the traffic, because that's my biggest concern. But back to my question. For weddings, you mentioned 200 seated dinners, I believe, but then for the multi-purpose room, you said you can only seat about 92 or 98.
It was 192.
So, but you just said you can only seat 92. So where's the?
No. If that's what you heard, I apologize. You can see it's on the drawings, and it's here.
Yeah,
There's
but
two
just
different
make sure
rooms.
the record's clear. It's a good question, because I heard
Yes.
92
I
also.
heard 92
It's-
also.
It's 192.
Yeah.
All right.
And then regards to outside activities, if you had an outside wedding with 190 people, where are they going to park?
I think we'll agree to not have a reception after a wedding, correct? Is that what you're asking?
Well, you mentioned you may, and then if you're using the parking lot for the tent and the wedding, then where do the people park?
So that's all part of the reason why they would have to go get separate permitting to do something like that, because the town presumably, when they're considering whether to allow a permit, is going to want to know where people are parking, and
So-
if they can't answer that question, the town's not going to issue the permit.
So that would be directly tied to the permit for that day.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
To add on to that, we talked about this before, can we put a stipulation that there'll be no overflow parking on Sharon Drive?
Yes, as a condition of approval, I'm fine with saying there will be no overflow parking on Sharon Drive.
Thank you.
That was an easy one, thank you.
Do we need to clarify the record on the number?
What are you might as well just be very, very clear on what the numbers are for
Right.
for the multipurpose room.
The multi-purpose room, it would be 192 occupants, 8 servers, 8 occupants in the kitchen. That would be maximum.
All right, 192 seating, 8 servers, and how many?
8,
8 staff
yes.
in the kitchen. Okay. Thank you. Let me just swear you in. Do you swear in testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Just state your name for the record.
Michelle McKeon, McKeon.
Hold on, you're ahead of me, Michelle.
I'm sorry.
Is Michelle with 1 L or 2 L's?
2 L's.
2 L's. And spell the last name again?
MC, capital K, E, O like ocean, N like Nancy.
Okay. And what's your address?
I'm protected by Daniel's law, so I could tell you.
Okay. No, you don't have to.
Okay.
Daniel's law. Go ahead.
I think everybody knows where I live at. I just had some more questions about, am I close enough? The kids for the vacation Bible school, do the kids get dropped off or are they bussed in?
I think it's both. It's both.
Okay, we can't have people giving
Yeah.
answers from the audience. If you don't know the answer, just say you don't know the answer, and we'll stop. We'll get the answer.
Well, I know it now. It's both.
Okay. I would imagine. I know you're talking about outside. Is Vacation Bible Study predominantly an indoor activity with some outdoor activity, or is it more like for 2 weeks there's going to be 150 kids having a summer camp outside?
It's
The whole
mostly indoor, right? But they do occupy the outdoor spaces.
For like a portion of each
Yes.
day, or for like?
Yes.
Okay. Is it generally in the afternoon portion or in the morning portion?
That I don't know.
I think we already talked about the $10 at some point it was said that there's like 2 funerals a year or 2 weddings a year or maybe both. Is that accurate?
That's based on church history. That's typically what they can have. They basically said, we can have 2 funerals a year, we can have 2 weddings a year. Of course it could be more. You know, they could end up having 5 weddings and no funerals. But it would be,
But historically speaking, there's not like a wedding.
No.
I know we're
I
not
can
predicting
interrupt you,
when
Mr.
people
Dooley.
die.
I actually spoke with I know I'm not supposed to testify, but I spoke with the church today. Typically, most people today do not want to have a church, like do not want to have their reception in the church, so most people do destination or they rent out a facility. Last year they had 2 weddings.
Is it just, you're referring to weddings as wedding receptions, or they have ceremonies at the church and
They
then
had
they
2
go
wedding
elsewhere?
receptions. Now, wedding ceremonies are different. I do not know how often those occur.
And then you don't know if they also occur, if it's like a afternoon or an evening
I think
service?
it depends on when you're getting married. Like, I got married on a Friday afternoon. Some people get married on Saturday. Some people get married on Sundays.
Okay. About how many of these conferences are there each year? Or with the new facility, do you anticipate there being?
they have one conference scheduled a year. It's a larger conference. They bring people in from the outside. They come in and teach and preach. There could be members, depending on if they would get a preacher who decide they like him, they would bring him in for a weekend to talk. But it's not, the frequency isn't high enough.
And it's still just an indoor
Yes.
worship and then
Yes, that's all
study in
indoor.
the
Yes.
multipurpose room? And then I think the amplified sound and speakers, I know there's an audio room for the speakers inside the church. Are there any speakers mounted to the exterior of
No,
the church?
there are not.
For vacation?
And that can be a condition that there be no amplified sound outside. Correct?
I mean, what if we're having like a barbecue and we get a special use permit? We want to have music.
So no amplified sound outside absent a special permit?
That's fair.
Is that, I'm sorry, is a special permit for amplified noise, or just, are you saying if there's a special permit at all? Sorry.
If a special permit's issued, they're gonna need a permit to do an outdoor activity. So if they're doing a permitted outdoor activity, then amplified sound would be okay. Because that'd be part of the outdoor permitted activity.
Okay.
Alright, what this does is it keeps any of the, it keeps them from having normal outdoor sound going off and annoying everybody.
They would also have to meet the requirements of the town for time it started, time it ends, how loud it can be.
Okay, it's, now, for the purpose of the town ordinance for noise, would this facility count as a charitable organization that's exempt from all the noise ordinances in town? So that's how the ordinance reads.
It says charitable, that the ordinance reads that charitable organizations
That
don't have to obey
music.
the sound cut, the sound
No, no,
ordinance?
but the noise from, the music from within the building is exempt.
I don't know. I don't know if that's what the ordinance, that's a very weird ordinance, if that's
I
what the
agree,
ordinance
it's
says.
a weird ordinance, that's why I'm asking.
Do you know?
Are you worried from within or from outside?
Both.
Right.
I mean, and I understand obviously outdoor noise is going to happen sometimes. Montessori has a graduation once a year, we
Right.
hear all the kids. I mean, I understand that there's some level of normal outdoor noise at a facility, at a church, and things like that.
Right.
It's more just the frequency is what I was more asking. So if you're saying then their special permit, the permitted activity, the outdoor speakers would have to be listed on their permit application if they
It's
were to
part,
get
it
one?
would be part, because they've already agreed that if they do an outside activity, they're going to have to get a special permit. It doesn't include just kids sitting on the grass, like, you know, they were clear about that. We're talking about something significant that they would need the outside noise would have to be included in that. Now, the indoor noise, if there is something that says in the township ordinance, what you're saying, there's nothing we can do about that. Because that's what it says, and again, the property's zoned as a church, so
So that would fall into the,
I guess if that's what the ordinance says.
Yeah, if there's a state law that governs noise and how much noise can exist at the property line different times of the day. And that's what would govern. I think the ordinance references the state law.
and now during services, when there is noise for, or music or anything with the choir, the doors are all then closed, I would
Yes.
imagine.
They are.
Okay.
And I found the ordinance section if you'd like me to reference it.
I'm curious. Yeah.
It's 3-3.4 exceptions. Nothing in this chapter shall be construed to apply to church bells or chimes or playing of bands or orchestras in a hall or building owned or operated by a charity organization in a manner which will not annoy the peace, comfort, and quiet of the neighboring inhabitants or the municipal, county, state, or federal government agencies in connection with any emergency or normal working activities of or sponsored by the township council, or to warning devices on vehicles used only for traffic and public safety purposes or as specifically permitted and or required. So that's subsection C of 3-3.4 exceptions.
But it says it's an exception as long as it doesn't annoy the public.
Right,
Is
that's
that
what
Yeah.
I'm
you're reading?
thinking,
In
right.
a manner which will not annoy the peace, comfort, and quiet of the
So
neighboring
you're still
inhabitants.
entitled
So you're
to
still-
quiet
right.
enjoyment,
Yeah.
and that
And
comes
I
first.
understand that, but
So that's a little bit different than what you said. That-
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
just-
I don't mean
just-
exempt completely, but yes.
It's
there-
not
be-
at all.
Because if they're sitting there, and I know they're not doing this, but they're putting on like a rap show or something, and it's just really, really loud, and bass is booming.
I'm not interested.
They
And
can't
I'm not
do that.
interested in calling the police every time the music's on, or I'm just trying to get an idea of what's coming. That's
Understood.
really what to prepare for.
So thank you for that clarity, Ms. Curley. I
Not a
appreciate it.
problem.
And then the new ones that you had, would the public be able to see those at any point tonight? The new renderings?
rendering?
Oh, the
Claire
renderings?
has them,
Clear.
so yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, that's all my questions.
Thank you.
Sorry, just a quick question as we're talking about outdoor noise. I don't know if we talked about it yet. Waste disposal, private contractor, I assume, will come
Yes.
in. Normal working hours, not like 5 a.m., like a 9 a.m. ish type of
I
thing.
think we addressed this on
Did we?
November.
Okay,
in
all right.
the-
I just
with our
it came
engineer.
up. I was just thinking about it.
Did.
We
Just want to
and-
make sure. Okay.
So
remember that.
I'm pretty sure this was addressed by our engineer in the November meeting date. If you
Okay.
wouldn't give me a minute, I can try to pull up the
Nah,
transcript.
don't worry about it.
Okay.
If it was addressed, we're good.
And we placed it too somewhere, right, out of
I
the
know
way
we
of.
I think we had relocated the
We
dumpster
moved it. I
from
remember
the
all of
January
this.
meeting
Correct.
in order to.
That I remember specifically.
That was one of the
Where it
revisions
wouldn't
that we were
smell,
made.
it was out of everyone's way. I remember all of this.
Okay. Ma'am, I'll swear you in. The swearing testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Just state your name for the record.
Mary Desane.
Mary,
Yes.
and what, spell the last name?
DESAND.
And your address?
4 Upton Place.
For what?
Upton Place.
Upton. Thank you. Go ahead.
So my question refers to the prohibiting the overflow of traffic on Sharon Drive. And so Upton Place is another little cul-de-sac within Sharon Drive. Will that include that as well?
I'm not That's not my testimony.
How about we won't do overflow parking on this, on like local roads or residential roads, if that makes,
Yeah, they're not allowed to put.
Great.
Yeah, you're not allowed to
Thank
put
you.
overflow
Perfect.
parking on public roads.
I like that.
Yes.
That
So
includes
Cold
that
Indian
then.
Springs.
That would include any public road.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any more questions from the public?
Ms. Raylene, do you swear your testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I did.
Just state your name for the record.
Nick Lordi, L-O-R-D-I, 13 Sharon
Hold on.
Drive.
Lordi
Yes,
and your address?
13 Sharon Drive.
Go ahead.
With respect to the questions that were brought up regarding use, typically churches will have bylaws and also permissible use agreements, and that may be useful for us if the church has one, so that we can see what the permissible uses are. With respect to traffic, I know we already covered traffic last week or last meeting. However, there were some things that were brought up today that we were not privy to last time we had the traffic study. For example, the food bank every Saturday, which attendance varies. Also, the summer Bible camp in the middle of the summer. As I recall, the traffic study was done in just the month of June. It didn't address the peak hours on a Saturday or during the summer. So I'm only bringing this up because we can't really close.
Here's the whole
We
problem.
can't
with-
close traffic with this
Understood.
new information.
Here's the whole problem with the whole traffic argument. The place is zoned for a church.
Yes.
So we can't, the fact that there's traffic that is going to be associated with this use is irrelevant.
Correct.
Because, from a zoning perspective, because they're allowed to have a church there.
I understand they're allowed to have a church, but
Right.
the traffic will be impacting Sharon Drive, as everybody will be coming through Sharon Drive.
Understood your point, but we can't deny an application based
I-
upon the fact that people think it's going to impact the
Okay.
traffic on Sharon Drive because the property is permitted to have a church.
I understand that, so let me ask you this question. Regarding D variances for inherently beneficial uses,
This is not a D1 use variance, which is all that would apply for an inherent
I
benefit.
thought you said that in the,
It's a D3.
okay,
And it's a D3, which is a conditional use variance, which is solely deemed a conditional use, which basically means it's permitted to have it for the use. But
Yes.
there's one condition it doesn't meet, and the condition it doesn't meet is that it doesn't meet lot width.
so then,
So
Lot
therefore,
depth.
lot depth, I'm
depth.
sorry, lot depth. So therefore, they need what's known as a D3, which is a much lower standard than a D1 use variance, which is what you're talking about when you start talking about inherently beneficial uses.
okay.
So inherently beneficial uses are completely irrelevant
So
to
let
the
me ask-
conversation.
Let me ask a question. Does the board take into consideration the detrimental effects that the grant of the variance will have on the community itself, the neighboring? Which is where traffic is.
Any variance you take in the negative impact, but it's got to be related to the variance.
Yeah, that's,
So you have to somehow say the fact that they don't meet lot depth somehow contributes to the detriment to the area, and I think that's a very difficult thing to establish.
yeah.
So in other words, you're saying that the impact of traffic onto the community, including Sharon Drive, there's nothing that can be done, is what
That's
you're
not
saying?
directly related to the variance that they're requesting.
Okay.
What the board has to look at is what is the reason for that variance? And then, is there any detriment that's related directly to the variance that may be inconsistent with that reason? And traffic is not an issue there.
Okay, thank you.
Meanwhile, notwithstanding that the traffic is not part of the variance at all, clearly your board is trying to work with
Yes,
the
I understand that.
applicant and address
Which
the
is, we appreciate
concerns.
that.
Right, and they've agreed to some conditions already. I mean, they agreed to the no through street, no U-turn signs at the top of Sharon Drive. They've agreed to no overflow on any public street. We're hoping they're gonna go with us hand in hand, assuming the board approves the application, to the county and asked that they eliminate the no left turn.
Okay,
So
regarding,
we're trying to, the board's obviously taking traffic very seriously, but it is sort of limited in what it can do on the traffic front.
okay, if you could look at no through street, as I understand, it's not part of Goshen Township traffic regulations, and it would not be enforceable since you would have to put that sign up on Asbury Avenue, and you would have to have advance notice that Sharon Drive is not a through street. So if you do want to put that in, I believe you'd have to talk to the county about getting that sign on Asbury Avenue to provide advance notice.
Well, that's not necessarily true. A no through traffic sign or a no U-turn sign can be installed without advanced warning of that sign.
But it would not be able to be enforced, is what I'm saying.
Well, yes, it would have to be enforced by the police department. And if you know, say the plan is approved and that a sign is installed, and if you know, you see traffic driving through your neighborhood using it as a through street, you can call the police and you know, they'll send somebody out, you know, probably at the times that you see it most often, and then they would enforce it.
All right.
To kind of piggyback on what was said before, the traffic impacts again are not related to the variances they're asking for, but the site circulation exiting from the site, the driveway, is related to the site plan, which they are asking for site plan approval. So when the board is kind of asking for that driveway to be changed from a right out only to a multiple movements, right and left, that's an impact on the site plan approval. So that's it's not being ignored. It's just different than I think what you're trying to get the board to do.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to note for the record that Mr. Klein did talk about the summer camp and the numbers of students at his hearing. So he did address that.
You just want to, since you're mentioning it, you just want to summarize.
Yeah,
what it
Mr.
says.
Klein says, and then we also did that again. There's a summer camp, I believe, being proposed. There's 150 students there. We treated that like a school as well. All the students would come for a certain time, and when...
I believe when he proposed when he said he did the study, wasn't that done in June?
The study,
This traffic study?
June 1 through June 12th, I wrote it down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if the summer camp's in July, how would that, you would really have to do a study of traffic in July at the height of the summer
I don't believe
to
the
get the whole impact.
This was a question from Mr. Klein that you could have asked in December, but I don't believe that there's an ITE category for camps. I think he did it under the school category, which would be operates year round.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions from the public? Mr. Gazarovski, do you have any questions, or that'll be next month? Okay.
All right. Can I bring up my planner?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Mr. Anderson is back now. He just had surgery, so be kind.
Yeah, I seem to do this quite a bit. I had this twice during this application. I've had surgery. Knees, shoulders, heads and toes are next, I think, according to my grandchildren.
So, Mr. Anderson, if you want to get sworn in, we'll give you a call.
Well, he's already, so if he was sworn in and I confirmed he was at the November 12th hearing?
I'm still under oath.
Then you're still under oath.
All right,
But
so
you're
just
now going to be testifying as a planner.
so just to refresh your memory, I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Clarkson University, 1983. I've been practicing site engineering since graduation. Approximately 16 years ago, I decided to sit for the planner's exam, and I passed the planner's exam and been a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey since that point, and my license is current as a planner. I do testify in front of boards such as this on a regular basis as an expert in planning.
So I do apologize to Mr. Anderson because
You
he
didn't
did
just
more than
check
check
the
the box.
All right, are we good to continue?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, so we know where the property is. It's an irregular shaped property that has both frontage on Asbury Avenue and also Trox Lane in the back, which is a paper street and has been indicated as unlikely to be developed. And so this being in the R2 zone, it is a conditional use. One of the conditions is lot depth. But the problem exists where we have this paper street in the back, creates another front yard, and then there's an obligation to have a rear yard. So one of the two side yards, what would be typically considered a side yard, has to be a rear yard. And so at some point, the rear yard touches the front yard. So the total depth of the lot per your ordinance definition is 0 feet.
So if the paper street was not there, you would not have the lot depth variance.
That's correct.
And you would not need the D3 variance, and you'd be before the planning board.
That is all correct.
Okay.
All right, so just as a point of, just to get a better understanding, the distance on the left side as you look at the property from Asbury Avenue is approximately 289 feet from the right-of-way of Asbury Avenue to the back property line. It's not a depth by your ordinance definition, but functionally it's a depth. On the right side, as you look at it from Asbury Avenue, is 750 feet. So the average depth at the midpoint is well over twice the 200 feet required. The way I look at it is that the intent of the ordinance is to provide proper geometry of the lot, proper depth as well as area for a use of this type.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is the paper street, would you describe that and whether or not, as it's laid out on the tax maps, as it's physically laid out, even though it's not developed, whether that could ever be constructed as a through street?
No, it would not be constructed as a through street. It does go in and stop at a point approximately, up to lot 45, which is towards the back of this subject property.
And the right-of-way width of that paper street?
I believe it's 20 feet wide. So there would have to be additional land acquisition. It wouldn't meet any of the standard widths of a roadway. And when I indicated that it's unlikely ever to be developed as a roadway, that's kind of what I meant. But thank you, Mr. Higgins, for that.
And let me just ask,
guiding that clarification.
Do you agree with that from a planning perspective?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the width is, if we're trying to check the width right now, I think it's a little bit more than 20 feet, but it's not the 50 feet that's required, I know that.
Okay.
I can probably find that in a minute.
Okay, I'll let you.
I'll note that Mr. Higgins agrees with that testimony, that the paper street can never really be developed. So it's never going to be a street, I guess is what the point is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the board can take into consideration when granting the D3, because the whole point of the D3 is that they have a depth problem because of the paper street that is never going to be an issue because paper street's never going to be developed.
Right.
It's sort of like a technical D3.
30, according to the tax map, it's 34 feet.
34 feet. Thank you, Mr. Higgins. So, with all that considered, the governing case really for this is the Coventry Square decision, which outlines the variance proofs for the D3, and so it is, as was indicated, it is a permitted use regardless of our ability to meet this condition. We don't have to show its appropriateness, but it has to show that it can handle the problems associated with the lack of conforming to this condition. I quite honestly don't see any problems created by the lack of conformance with this condition. We have adequate depth on all the way through the lot, physically to build this, and there's really no deficiency that's created. So I think it meets that requirement quite easily because there is no deficiency associated with that lack of conformance to that condition. And it's really just a definitional thing. Now, I think we meet that, but I just want to point out that the width you heard throughout this application that the applicant has gone farther on many issues with regard to trying to mitigate other conditions, not necessarily with the lot depth, but also try to make the impact to the neighboring properties less. The biggest being increasing the buffer on the Sharon Drive side from 25 to 45 feet and providing additional buffering landscaping throughout that entire area. I mean, probably doubling the buffering area, you know.
Trees.
So we have heard what the board has asked for and provided that. We also looked at the board's recommendation, can we reduce the parking so that we could do that additional buffering. We had the parking study that showed that the actual ratio of parking required for this church was 2.53 as opposed to what the ordinance says. So we were able to actually justify that the parking is sufficient based on what we really think we need. We still need the variance as indicated for parking to the ordinance, but we have gone that extra step, and we also have agreed to only security lighting in the evening to minimize any light issues associated with the use, which is not required, but certainly something that I think is helpful to the community. So that addresses the D3. There are some C variances associated with the application. I think they're all justified with C2. Section 21-2016. There's a limitation on how much fill or change in grade you can have throughout the site. This property, the plan is basically at around 2 feet, plus and minus 2 feet throughout almost the entire site. There are several sections where it is 3 feet, maybe 3.5, but that's just it's very minor in terms of that. So I think it meets the intent of that. We have this plan with grading specifically coming so that we can handle the stormwater, and it's the stormwater control and positive drainage that we have created that deviation from the plan. But again, it is very minor, and I don't see any real negative impact to the zone plan or ordinance associated with nonconformance with it by only such a small amount. Ordinance section 214513A, the driveway location in the middle third. Now this is again one that was discussed with the board's professionals prior to our making this application, or when we first made the application. I'm not 100% sure which, and saying that there was one accident on the roadway created by lack of sight distance or insufficient sight distance. Our initial location of the driveway was in the middle third. It had adequate sight distance based on AASHTO. However, we did move it, and then we moved it back a little bit based on comments to get it away from the property line. It is 17 to 20 feet outside the middle third, but it does provide additional sight distance, additional safety. I don't think it's a substantial detriment. It doesn't create any problems to the adjacent property, and overall, it provides additional safety. So that one in particular, I think the benefits outweigh the detriments associated with C2, and it's something that we were requested to do. Ordinance section for parking. We have 198 spaces required based on our 2.53, and we're proposing 218. So based on our numbers, our calculations for this site, based on the parking survey done for the church, we have adequate parking for even full attendance days. So, but that does not mean that we comply with the ordinance. The ordinance requires 250, 251 parking spaces based on this use. So we do need that variance. But I think based on our work with the parking study, you can see that the impact of not having that number of parking spaces is de minimis. And it also, in terms of what it does on the positive side of the equation, it obviously allows us to have additional green space, less impervious coverage, and so forth. The landscape plan prepared by my office has received some positive comments from the board planner, who reviews your landscape plans. And we have agreed to work with him in the field to make field modifications based on what trees might be saved and so forth. And so I think that the impact of my horticulturalist doing the plan for this application is also not a significant impact. And the fact that we can provide additional plantings and work with the board's planner, I think is very positive. And then, as mentioned, the tree replacement plan will require a contribution to the tree fund. There's no way we can fit all of the trees needed on site. We have added as many as we possibly can, but I think that we have culled that impact down significantly from our initial application. So I think the C variances and the D variances all can be granted without substantial detriment to the zone plan and ordinance. This is an inherently beneficial use, and I think there's a lot of wonderful things that they'll do for the community. And as I just went over, all of the negative impacts are relatively minor, and many of them are things that we've worked out with the boards and the board's professionals along the way to try to make this a better application. And that concludes my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Questions from the board?
Mr. Anderson, if the applicant is agreeable to going back to the county to talk about the entrance and the exit, would you need flexibility on the exact location of the driveway? Meaning, might you want to go back to the middle third?
I don't think I would want to go that way. Because the middle third is reducing sight distance, and making left turns would be probably creating additional need for additional sight distance. So could we use additional flexibility? I think that if we discuss it with the applicant and they want to agree to what has been suggested, I think all the flexibility to make whatever change to get it to work would be appropriate. But I wouldn't recommend going further to the middle third.
I misheard what you said. Very good, thank you. Any questions from the board members?
Do we typically grant variances for the not having a certified or a licensed landscape architect?
Yes.
We will? Okay. So
Yes.
you don't have any concerns
As
with that?
long as it gets reviewed and it's basically worked with the township professionals to make sure, and with the environmental commission to also to make sure that it's the landscape plan is acceptable.
So there's no concern here?
Yeah.
And that's actually a variance and not a design waiver?
Yes, it is. It was.
I don't think we got it.
Yeah. Certain.
That's very good that LA
that
lobby
wasn't
here.
my choice when I wrote the ordinance. Let's just put it that way. But I was told to do
I
it
said
that
the
way.
same thing.
Thank you for putting so many trees back in.
You're welcome. Thank you for the suggestion.
You're welcome.
Any questions
Yeah.
from our professionals? Any questions from members of the public? Come on up, sir.
And sir, just state your name again for the record.
Boris Lovasek.
Okay, and you're still under oath.
Yes. I just have a quick question about that paper street. Like, is it staying as is? Is there any plans for the paper street to
Nothing.
change?
So nothing can be done with, as you heard, it can't be developed, and the town can't do anything with Paper Street other than cede it to an adjacent property owner.
Okay.
That's literally the only thing they can do. They can't put benches in it. They can't turn it into a
I
park.
know,
They
yeah.
can't do anything.
So there's no plans for it to do it?
I can
seed it?
explain. I'll explain the history because we researched it to find out why it was even there. I don't know why it was there, but it used to extend from Asbury Avenue all the way to Bound Road, 34 feet wide, and over 2/3 or probably 3/4 of it from the end of where it ends by the middle of the rear of this site, all the way to Bound Road has been vacated. It doesn't exist anymore. And there's no way I can see that a 34-foot wide road without a cul-de-sac on the end, that doesn't serve any purpose would actually be improved. So
there's no plan to like
No,
cut it
no.
up, dissolve it, like
well,
get
there
rid
was
of it?
there was some talk about doing it, and I think basically some of the people that were adjacent to it didn't want to do it, or the council didn't want to do it. I don't know what the reason was. We tried to get that done.
Yeah,
So I
that's
guess
a-
everybody
that's a
has
coun-
to be on board, or
No, it's a council decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not the it's not the zoning
I know
board's
it's
decision.
not.
Yeah.
So it's totally up to the council, and the council decided for whatever reason not to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
I was just curious. Thank
but
you.
there's no plans. I can't see it ever being improved.
Any other questions from the public?
And so just state your name again for the record.
You want to go last, Mr. Grazowski?
Nick Laurie.
Right.
Thank you.
With respect to lighting, you brought that up. The plans state that lights to remain full brightness until 12 a.m., then dim to 50% output until dawn. Would you consider, I looked up the township ordinance with respect to lighting, 21-46A.6, which states luminaries must be reduced by at least 50% of full operational levels within 30 minutes after the close of business, provided, however, a minimum level of horizontal luminance shall be maintained. Would you consider following that ordinance instead of waiting until midnight to lower the lights?
I believe the engineering testimony when we talked about lighting was that we would conform with that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
When we had the engineering testimony, that was agreed to.
So you'll comply with the ordinance?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so lighting will comply with the ordinance.
Yes.
Sure, Mr. Gazarowski.
But you still will have emergency safety lighting, right? So
Correct,
if something
security lighting.
happens, it'll go on for safety reasons?
We will comply with all the ordinance requirements, and I believe security lighting is
Goes down
included
to
in that.
Yeah, I
50%,
have
right?
a condition in my notes
It
that
does.
overnight security lighting plan is going to be submitted because
Right.
there was discussion with some of the neighboring properties about basically concerns about where the lights are and which ones are going to be left on overnight. So that was a condition that they would submit that.
Okay. But I just meant, I know it gets reduced immediately to 50%, but I meant if someone approaches the property that shouldn't, I meant emergency safety lights that turn on bright.
All right, Mr. Gazarovski?
Yes, just briefly. Reference has been made to this paper street. Are you familiar with it?
I am.
You know who is the owner of the underlying fee of that paper street?
I do not.
Okay. So at the present time, there's no testimony before this board as to who is the owner of the underlying fee of the paper street.
Yes, I have not heard any.
Okay, thank you.
The tax maps show it to be a public right of way.
Pardon me?
The tax maps show it to be a public right of way.
Well, it may very well be a public right of way.
Yes.
And I don't wish to interrupt you, Mr. Williams. You and I go back a long way.
Yeah, I know, yes.
I'll listen and I'll
So,
respond.
so it would be the township would be the owner.
Well, that may not be necessarily so. The township may be the owner of the traveled way.
Yes.
There's another question as to who in fact owns the underlying fee, which is the land beneath the traveled way. There's got to be an answer to that. And you may be right. I don't know whether you are or you aren't. Now, next, I listened to your introductory comments, and I want to clarify one thing. Are you the engineer who prepared these plans?
I am.
Okay. And you signed off on the plans?
Yes.
I want to go into a little bit of discussion with regard to the paved area. My recollection.
Mr. Gazarovski, we completed the testimony of his engineering. We're not reopening his testimony. We completed it on November 12th, 2024.
Okay, let's say that. Well, first of all, I think that would call for a ruling from the board attorney as to whether or not I am permitted to cross-examine him with regard.
I mean, I tend to agree with Ms. Curley in that testimony was concluded. They had questioning of him as an engineer. He's now appearing just as a planner, and I don't know that we should reopen the engineering at this point in time.
Now, I know everybody here for a long, long time. Having said that, then I only would request that I be able to call at the next hearing my engineer so that he may give testimony
Of course.
with regard to the issue of the impervious surface.
100% you can.
Thank you.
And then
Thank
Ms.
you.
Curley
I'll
can
accept
put on
that.
rebuttal testimony if she wishes.
Thank
at
you,
that
Mr.
point.
And I would actually like
His
to
father really taught him good.
I would like to make a request on that because of just the last minute nature of Mr. Gazarovski's request, because I got a call earlier today. I would ask that we are on the next meeting and that we finish at that meeting. And if not, Mr. Gazarovski is free to have a special meeting that he pays for from his client where we can go through.
Well, listen, we're not going to decide that today.
Okay.
Right, so let's take it step by step, and we'll see what happens. Because if there are time constraints, the next meeting there's going to be 4 residential applications on, that's my understanding. But we're going to do this application first. Is that what I'm hearing? We're going to do the residentials first. We're going to do the residentials first, then we're going to get to it. So there's going to be time constraints on it, and we can't limit him. But we're also, obviously, there's going to have to be some sort of limitation that we're not going to go crazy either. So
I just asked for the board's consideration.
I understand. I don't know how we can force
time and expense.
I understand that, but I don't know how we can force him to pay for a special meeting.
I also would like to request that there will be no emails the day before the hearing that an expert is sick or they cannot appear.
I don't think the board's going to tolerate any sense that there's been an intentional delay, nor will we assume that Mr. Gazarovski would ever do that. But clearly the board would not support that, and that would not go over very well.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Higgins. What does it mean, the underlying fee of this paper road? Or
I do not know. That's a legal term. Maybe Mark can.
It means who actually owns the property underneath. So the paper street goes over the property, but theoretically someone else could own the actual physical property. I don't know what the relevance of that is because it would be
Either
they're
you own it or
entitled
you
to
don't.
notice. They're entitled to notice based upon whatever the 200-foot list that was provided to them. So whether it's some other entity who happens to own it, it's not going to affect this application
Right.
as far as I'm concerned.
and it could also be the town that owns it,
It also could be the town.
which I probably would think
I would
is,
assume it's the town.
that's
but
what the answer
yeah,
will probably
gotta
be.
careful what you
Okay,
assume.
thank you.
Come on up.
Just state your name again for the record.
Michelle McKeon, McKeon.
Thank you. You're still under oath.
Okay.
Two
I
L's.
don't know if I'm supposed to ask you this or not. It's just the timeline for construction. I don't know which expert that is. I know the timeline of how long it's, was on the original plans.
That would have been the engineer, and
Okay.
we're not going to reopen the engineering testimony.
So let me just say this. Well, it's certainly a fair question to ask, although I understand Ms. Curley's saying that the time for construction really has no bearing on the application. It might be just something you want to know from personal interest, but the board can't approve or deny an application because construction is going to take long or annoy people. So
That wasn't the purpose.
I know. I'm just
Yeah.
clarifying that for the record.
Okay.
Okay.
14 months.
No, I know how long it's gonna take. I just didn't know the projection of, if it passes, when it's starting. That was.
Yeah, and I, from what I understand, it's going to start when they have the money to start it. Because I have a feeling that money is an issue at this point.
And I know we spoke after the meeting about the fence, and I just didn't know if I can ask that now?
I can put this. We spoke, she asked about putting a fence out, a completely opaque fence, which is against your ordinance requirements. So I said that would require a variance. I'm not inclined to request another variance to have a solid fence because I
So
believe
what are you
In the front
proposing
yard,
now?
in the front yard?
along Sharon Drive.
The properties that are along Sharon Drive, yeah, those ones.
That you could have a 6-foot solid fence there.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Okay.
That was just something that we had discussed where I said, is that something that
We
the
will look-
church would be open to
We will look
considering?
into that. He's writing it down.
Thank you.
And you let us know at the
Problem.
next meeting?
I'll let you know at the next meeting.
Ms. McKean, just remind us of the next meeting. I'm sure you will.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm sorry, I forgot your last name.
Anderson.
Thank you. When you first were introduced, I believe, I didn't catch the fact that you were also the engineer who designed the plans. But you designed the plans and you engineered all the testimony that you could, correct?
Again, Mr. Gazarovski, we're closed on the engineering.
I'm not asking him
testimony.
an engineering question. I'm just asking whether he did it
I prepared the site plans for this application.
as an engineer.
That's correct.
And you also came here today testifying as a planner.
That is correct.
So you're basically critiquing your own work, aren't you?
No. Plenty of engineers testify as both
Are you
planners and
testifying
engineers.
now?
No, I'm correcting you.
No, you're not. You have reviewed, you prepared the plans, and now you're critiquing your own work and you're approving it. Are you not? You're not biased in any way.
All right, so
are you?
Mr. Gazdowski, let him. We get your point.
Thank
Let
you.
him- You can answer the question if he wants.
Okay, I'm waiting.
Good. Okay.
I am reviewing from a planning perspective how the variances requested meet the positive and negative criteria associated with the municipal land use law to further granting of these variances. The fact that I actually understand the project more intimately because I did the site plans probably makes it a little bit easier for me to do that. However, it is no way a critique to say I really did a good job on that part. It is something where, and there has been discussion in my testimony where I've said to the board, we've worked together to make this a better plan. And that is just because we've been sitting here in the same room together talking about it.
And I will say, Mr. Gazdowski, as you well know, as the board well knows from having been here on numerous applications over the years, it's very, very common for the engineer, the applicant's engineer and planner to be the same person. Incredibly common.
Yes.
Well, it's not, I'd like to make one response to that. It's not uncommon for a planner who is within a company to review the plans of an engineer from that company. Here, he's reviewing his own plans.
No, he's not reviewing.
That's his opinion. I disagree with him.
Well, I disagree with him because I believe if you're a planner from the 70s and 80s, you were also an engineer. Yeah, so
it's very, very common.
it's extremely common.
Very common.
But
and
it's
the board knows that.
But as noted, and I correct my mistake, Mr. Anderson did take the test and passed
With flying colors.
with flying colors. Well,
First time?
first time.
No box. No,
Any
check
more
no box.
questions from the public?
Last question.
And just say your name again for the
Nick
record.
Lordi. With respect to construction, and I understand you can't force them or make them do anything, but one of the concerns we in the community has is funding. That construction starts, site plan starts, taking away all the trees, landscaping, but then funding runs out. So what's typically done from the board's perspective?
So what happens
is
is
there
they're,
a bond? Or
yeah, they're
is
going to
it-
have to bond
okay.
with the town.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the public? Any last questions from the board?
All right, so you're concluded.
I'm concluded. I just want to confirm that we're going to be on February 20th without further notice.
Correct.
Great.
So we need to carry this we need a motion to carry this application to February 20th without further notice.
Do we have a motion to carry?
Make a motion to carry to February 20th without further notice.
And
Second.
That could be an all in favor.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that everyone in the audience is aware, this application is being carried to the February 20th meeting in this room at 7 p.m. without further notice, meaning you're not going to get new notice, you just need to be here on February 20th at 7 p.m. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a
very
motion to
much.
adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?